Hello everybody, we've got a 2008 Chevy Silverado 1500 four-wheel drive, and we're going to be putting ball joints in this thing. The upper ball joint comes in this control arm. We'll be putting the control arm on, and we'll be putting lower ball joints on. We're also going to replace the CV axle shafts and the sway bar end links. I got this side tore down, but I'll show you on the other side how to take it apart and put it back together. Okay, you're going to need a ball joint tool. You can go down to a parts store, they'll usually loan these to you. It'll be similar to this right here. Alright, we're going to hit these bolts, nuts with penetrating oil. All these contacts and the sway bar end links. Go down here to the upper ball joint, lower ball joint, outer tie rod in. Now we're just going to start taking things loose. We'll take this ABS brake cable loose. Take this cap off here first. Let's get started. Okay, let's take this ABS sensor loose first here. Use a pair of needle nose pliers. There's a connector right here for this cable. Just gonna get underneath it, pry it up out of there. Of course, they usually break, so we'll have to go back with the tie strap on it. We'll just unplug it. Just a push clip here on the end and plugs. It's got some little loop clamps, little plastic loop clamps here. We'll bring that out, and we won't have to take, there's another clamp here, we won't have to take that off. We'll just leave that there. Take this 10 millimeter nut here off for this bracket for this brake line. Just remove it. Here we go. Let's get that up out of the way. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take this cap off. It's down here. And I'm just using a real thin ended screwdriver, and I'm going to work it around the edge of this cap where it meets this hub without trying to damage it too much. Usually if you use a real thin one, just work at it a little bit. It'll come off. Just don't want to damage it too much. Easier said than done. There, it's coming. I'll just go around beside it, all the way around it. Yeah, I know they make a tool for this probably. But we use what we got. There we go. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, remove this outer tie rod in off of this knuckle. It's a 21 millimeter. I'm going to take a hammer and I'm going to hit it right here so it knocks that free. like that. Saver nut. Next, I'm going to remove these 18mm bolts from this caliper. We're going to remove this caliper off of here, but I'm going to put a piece of wire on it so I can hold it up out of the way. That way it's not hanging from the rubber hose. Cause some damage. I think we'll just tie it to this sway bar right here. Wrap it around. Tie it up, get it out of the way. Then we can flip this a little bit, remove these brake pads. Next, I'm going to remove these 18mm bolts from this caliper. Just like that. Now you're going to want to remove these sway bar inlets. You're going to have to remove both sides if you're going to replace these CV axle shafts. If you're not replacing these CV axle shafts, you don't have to remove these, but these are wore out. I've had this off once, but I stuck it back in there for just demonstration purposes. The reason you want them out is so that you lift it up, you can slide that CV axle shaft out. Now like this, it will not come out. Now we want to remove this Carter key out of this upper ball joint, if it's got one. A lot of these now got lock nut type setups on them. We don't even use these anymore. I think the new ones are like that. We'll just pull this Carter key out, Carter pin, however they say it. That looks like maybe a 21. Looks like it. No, it's not 21. 18. My eyes going bad. Just like that. I'm just going to spin it right here. I can break it loose. Spin this off now. Just spin it all the way off. Now we're going to take this nut off the axle. That is a 35mm. It's got a washer that's behind it. That's going to go back on. Now we'll just, I'm just going to tap it right here, see if it's loose. It's pretty loose. If it acts like it's jammed up in there, you want to put a punch right here on the end of it. Smack it with that. You don't want to damage these threads. That one's pretty loose there. Now, if you're not replacing the rotors, or even that bracket could stay on this. It just makes it a lot heavier when you're trying to work getting it up in there. So I'm just going to take them off. Makes everything a little bit easier to do. And I'm just using a the Torx bit. Can't remember what size, 230 maybe. And I got a impact driver here. I'm going to hit it real good and see if I can break it loose. Just like that. That'll lighten it up quite a bit. Okay, now we need to separate these ball joints. I'm just taking a hammer. I'm going to smack it right here. Several times probably. pop out just like that. And we're going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to hit it right here. Okay, we're going to just lift up on it. We're going to remove this lower nut that we put back on it. It's going to drop down some, then we'll have to push this CV axle shaft out as far as we can. I'll work it around, remove it out like that. At this point, if you're not going to replace these axle shafts, you can just pull these up out of your way and then do your thing on this stuff. But we're replacing that, so we're going to remove it. It has 6 bolts in it that hold it in. These are 16 millimeter. Just remove a couple here. You'll get the idea. Go down here, out of your way. Pull this out of the way. Okay, next we're going to remove these bolts from this upper control arm. They slide in from the inward side, attached to a nut. They have these adjuster cams on it right here. There's a slot right here. Same thing on this side, and same thing over here on this side. That's how they adjust your caster and camber on these trucks. So what we need to do is I'm going to try to get these pretty close when I go back on with it. Of course, we'll have to get alignment done, but this will get it pretty close, marking where this is at. Take a little brake clean and clean it off a little. Wipe them down. I just want to get them clean here on this outside, so I'm going to mark these. A little bit of paint. Okay, I'm just going to mark these. See this little stud sticking out right here? This stays with the frame. I'm just going to mark these little cams right where that little thing's at. Same way over here on this cam. Okay, my camera quit recording there and I didn't know it. But anyway, I just took that nut off. There's these cams that I'm talking about, and we got them marked here. Right here, and then on the back side. And I'll show you on this front one here. I haven't removed it yet. We'll do that when you'll get an idea of how they come out. These are a 21 millimeter nut that's on them. Let's get one off. I'm just going to tapping this out. Now there's a spring here that's going to get in your way. So you want to slide this cam forward as you're pulling that bolt out. slide past that. Sometimes you're going to have to get a little screwdriver or something in there and help slide it. So I got a small pry bar here. See if we can pry that out of there. See, it's hitting that spring. So when you go back with it, this is going to be the first one you go back with. And I'm tilting my arm over in here to it. A little bit of a pain, but it will come out. I said move that cam forward as we're coming out with that. Let my back cam. Work it loose just like that, and then drop your hammer on everything. Anyway, just look at it. We know that's the front. And this will go on here like this. Before you put them back on, you want to clean these up, clean all this rust off these threads and this shaft, and the back side here where it contacts back in here. We're going to clean all this off. I'm not going to touch the outside. No need to do that. Then we're going to pull it out like that. Before you go back on with the new one, we'll take a scraper in here and you're going to clean these surfaces. In here, clean these surfaces on the outside, get all that dirt, grease, grime off of it. Do it over here on this side too. Next thing, we're going to remove this lower ball joint. Just going around the top side of it here, cleaning some of this grease and grime off of it. Penetrating oil on it here. Now we could use that ball joint press on this, but I don't have a cup for this bottom, and this thing sits so close to the edge. It'll make, if I try to press it, it's going to try to press it sideways. So what we do in a situation like that, this has to go down. I'm just taking this hammer, and I'm just going to knock it out. Just like that. Wipe it down. Go back in with the new one. Now on these lower ball joints, some of these vehicles they have to be on inboard, outboard, and they usually put a dot, or it may even be stamped on it somewhere. This one I don't see anything except maybe a little dot here on this boot. But I'm going to take this boot off anyway, because when I go back in with this, I don't want my cup to damage this boot. Well, it's just held on with a little spring clip here. See if we And get that off. Just bring it one end of it off, work it around. That. Pull the boot off. And this one don't have to go any particular way. If they did, like the inboard outboard deal, they're usually, oh, I'm exaggerating this, but they're slotted ovally right in here. So you'd want that, one of them slots facing out and one in. That way it gives it the room to work. Okay, we're going to set this up here in place. Put our ball joint press on it. Get screwed down here. I'm just using a cup on this ball joint on the bottom side that contacts this bottom flange, and then this cup right here is big enough where this joint won't contact it as it's going through. This also has to be small enough where you're contacting this lower control arm. Okay, we're going to tighten it down, make sure everything is going in square and even. Looks like we got it. Now they've redesigned these ball joints for this lower. Well, that's the old one. You can see it had a hump here in the center. Well, these has got grease fittings that go in them. And also they have a lock ring that goes on up here. I'm going to put that on. Like that. We'll take this grease fitting, put it on, make sure it's screwing in straight here. Okay, we'll try to get this upper arm in, and it wants to be a pain. Need about 2 more hands. Just pry bore like that. Take this. This is a soft hammer. Nope. Hold it over and push it. Nope. Yeah, I can hold it like this. Enough room. In like that. Don't pop out. Drive it in, get it lined up with them holes. You want to just take your cam bolts, fish them through again, just like when you removed them. And find a good way to get hold of them. It's one thing. slide this cam out like this. This right here is the hardest one. This front one here. Trying to get it lined up. There we go. Starting to get a pry bar on it. See if we can help it a little bit. Oh. Start over. Come on. Try not to pry too much on that strut. I don't have too much of an option sometimes. Pry bar in here. Hit it with the hammer. I just got my pry bar on the end of that bolt. Just gotta clear that spring. Get under it here. Oh, there we go. Drive that out just a little. Spin that cam up. It goes into that slot. Like that. Okay. Slide this other one on. Now we'll do the same thing on this side. Hopefully this side's a little easier. Fish it in there. That, put our cam in place. This one in place. Put on it. Okay, well, we're going to tighten these up, but we don't want to get them tight. We just want to get them snug. We want to get them snug enough where we can move this up and down. Pretty good. Now we want to align them red paint marks up that we marked earlier. Line this one up. About right there. Snug it. Yep. The reason we're doing that, we don't want to tighten these up until we have the full weight of the vehicle on here. Tires on it, it's all sitting on the ground. These will be the last thing we tighten up. That'll put that in a rest mode. Okay, so now you can just reverse procedure and put it back together. And these right here is all your techs or your torque specs for the ball joints, the control arms, and that axle that needs to be torqued 177. Hope that helps somebody. Thanks for watching.